Greetings and welcome to another edition of Trinity Radio. I'm Jonathan Pritchett, and along with me is...
Braxton Hunter and John Dunfee. Hey, John.
I was going to introduce him.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Hey.
And today we have John Dunfee.
All right.
There we go.
We got Dr. Braxton Hunter, pretty talented and well-known apologist, shared the stage with the William Lane Craigs to the Mike Laconas to all those guys. Jonathan Pritchett, Dr. Pritchett is here, and he is a New Testament guy, does a lot of stuff, a lot of podcasts, a lot of debates, so on and so forth.
So is the guy on the left Jerry Lewis, and Braxton's trying to be Dean Martin here? The straight guy and the funny guy?
They gave us nothing but tradition and no argument. All they did was get on this stage, yell real loud, and set a straw man on fire.
Okay, now I was not impressed.
I need a dumb guy. Do I have any volunteers who wants to be my sidekick, the dumb guy?
Respectfully, that sounds like a little bit of a dodge.
I'm claiming victory.
So where I come from, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
John, welcome to Trinity Radio.
Sucking all the air out already. How you doing, John?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, we're excited to have you here. So some people may wonder, who is this person and what's going on? Well, if you have been paying attention to the YouTube atheist, apologist, back and forths that go on all the time, every week on channels like Modern Day Debates and Capturing Christianity and the Non Sequitur Show, and there's probably a few others, you'll know that John goes under the name of his ministry / channel, JMD Apologetics 101, and he has moderated debates on there with some pretty important figures, and he has had a ton of interviews on his channel with really prolific apologists.
Including
After
you.
all, I've been on his channel.
Right, and I have not, so what is that?
I don't know what that means.
I know what that means. I know exactly what that means.
So we're gonna talk with you, John. But first of all, Dr. Pritchett doesn't even know much about you. So let's introduce you to our listener audience, and I'll explain why we have you on here. So tell us what you're doing, what your channel's all about, what your website is all about, where you're going to school, what you're doing. Just let us into the mind of John Dunfee.
Yeah, so basically, to make a long story short, I guess, I basically got into apologetics or coming across people you've done a few responses to, like Jacqueline Glenn. I don't think you've done one to Dusty Smith, TJ Kurt. This was about 2014, my sophomore year of high school or thereabouts. And basically, I didn't hear any good answers to their questions and objections, which are mediocre now, but at the time I thought they were like, defeaters for the Christian worldview. And I basically came across apologetics. Started out as a young earth creationist, headed more towards the William Lane Craig side of theology, you could say. I guess I'm holding more to some Thomist theology, like natural theology and stuff like that, or negative theology. And my website is ChristianTruthThroughApologetics.com. I basically believe apologetics is going to be the next form of evangelism that the church needs to take to reach my generations and the generations after that.
There's a really, I don't remember his name. There's a really attractive guy that looks a little bit like Jason Statham, who wrote a book called Evangelistic Apologetics because he buys into that very concept. But Mark Mittelberg says that evangelism in the 21st century is spelled apologetics,
and he's right.
While we would say that there are distinctions.
And he didn't even have to write a whole book on it either. He just says it.
But there are distinctions, but there's a lot in common there. There's a lot of overlap there.
Yeah.
And so we're on the same page with that, John. So you're excited about using apologetics for evangelism, and I think you're going to school for ministry, aren't you, or something like that?
Yeah, I'm a double major in biblical studies and philosophy, and then a minor in student ministry. I may change that to a major because I could probably triple major. I'm the only Molinist on campus, and all my professors are Calvinists, so that's always fun, and presuppositionalist.
Yeah.
So that's always fun.
Well, it's not Trinity College of the Bible and Theological Seminary, so it doesn't really matter anyway.
Right. I mean, who cares?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I went to Biola. Who cares?
Yeah. Well, good. You get along with them. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, so I wanted to have you on here because
So do you not like presuppositionalism?
I think the more if you use a tag argument and then say, hey, look, we have these things called laws of logic. What's the best explanation? What's the necessary preconditions for this? I think that's better than, but I think that's more just classical apologists just going under a different label, you could say. I think that's better than the Cy 10 and James White stuff that you guys have covered.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I like the best bits of the method to show where there's borrowed capital, to show where there's inconsistency or incoherency and the lack of foundation. But unlike diehard presuppositionalists, I don't see the need for reformed theology as some sort of underpinning for that at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Not for the method anyway.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to it. But you oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say a good book that I think is sort of precept-like, but is by a classical apologist, is Stealing from God, which is by Frank Turek. He basically argues that there are 6 things in the acronym of crimes, and basically you need to presuppose God to argue against him, almost like. That's not the way he phrases it, but that's what I pick up from the book at least.
Right. But you said you're more in the Thomist tradition, and you like.
I'm not a Thomist because I'm a Molinist, and I think when you read some of Thomas Aquinas on his view of God's knowledge, I think it's compatible with Molinism. But
right.
I agree with the idea that we don't know what God is, but rather we know God by what he's not, because we don't really have a good idea what it is to be timeless, spaceless, immaterial. But at the same time, you can make a logical conclusion since matter, time, and space has a beginning at the Big Bang and so on.
But you like Summa contra Gentiles in 5 ways and using kind of a natural theology approach. Okay, yeah.
So you're not supposed to exist, John, because I keep hearing from all these atheists that young people today, especially the smart ones, every time I look on my YouTube comments, if there's a video with a young person in it or something like that who seems smart, they'll say, "Oh, well, he'll be an atheist in a few years." There's that guy, that kid Gregory. I don't know if you're aware of him, Jonathan, but yeah, there's a kid Gregory who's like 11 years old, and he's debating.
Did he debate T-Jump?
I think so, yeah. And everybody's putting in the comments, well, he is really smart. Probably has a really high IQ, so he'll be an atheist here in a few years. So you're not supposed to exist because clearly you're a really sharp guy, and you so explain to me, how is it that a person like you has not bought into the atheist stuff? I know you said when I did the video response to Jacqueline Glenn, you said originally, like you just said here, it kind of rattled you a little bit. But what brought you back? Was it apologetics, or was it just a commitment to, hey, I've been a Christian for a long time, so I'm just committed to this? What happened?
Well, I just go by the title apologist, so I can make a quick buck. So that's basically that.
Yeah, and you're dishonest.
Right.
Yeah.
Used car salesman.
If where you disagree with me, you're clearly dishonest.
Yeah. I just found that the competing worldview of atheism, I think consistent atheism, you can define yourself as a lack of belief atheist, that you're just not convinced. But even then, there's criteria for that I don't even think they meet when they take that route. But I just found arguments for other religions and other worldviews that I've studied. Of course, I haven't looked at every single worldview out there, but I see positive evidence for Christianity being true. So I go with my conclusion of what I have studied, at least.
Now, were you raised in a Christian home?
Yeah, that didn't really help me when I came across those objections and so on.
Right. So I was raised in a Christian home too, which I'm thankful for. I don't see that as a bad. You're just everyone comes to the point like John did, where you have to actually be confronted with ideas that compete in the marketplace of ideas that want to take down Christianity, and you have to reason through this, and you have to look at all the evidence from both sides and all of that. And so you kind of have a watershed moment at every point, and then Christianity still comes out on top for many of us. I get it that it does it for others, but you're in the arena of probably more savvy with the YouTube stuff, with the modern theology debate, or what is it, the modern debates. You've shown me a few, Braxton showed me a few of those. So you hear arguments all the time against Christianity, and yet you still find Christianity comes out on top. So is that part of what people think there's a danger in apologetics, that if you get too deep into that world, you could walk away from the faith, but you found being in the thick of it, continues to reinforce your belief. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's completely fair, and it gives me something to do because I have a lot of free time sometimes. So picking up a book and reading it is sort of fun. You could call me a nerd, I guess.
Yeah.
But I've looked at more scholarship, and what I've realized, at least, I did a video for my second 1,000 subscriber special, second part to that, I guess. Well, I just responded to YouTube atheist comments I came across, and literally, if you just go through most of these popular YouTube videos, you'll see the same exact comments, and it's just like, seems like a lot of research skills here. This is an argument for my position being correct, but the research skills compared to that and apologists, I find the apologetics more researched, I guess.
Yeah, I always hear from atheists, well, you guys just don't care about the evidence, and you're trotting out these old tired arguments that you think count as evidence, but we are actually the ones interested in the evidence and concerned about facts and science and all these things. But as I've learned over the past couple of months of looking at these atheists, the people that are supposed to be the people, that have that represent the atheist position, these propagandizers, and some of them, most of them are really nice people. I think the ones that make the videos that I've responded to are very nice people. But what I have just been shocked by and really surprised by is that if I go to a YouTube channel, like if I go to Mike Winger or on your channel or Michael Jones or Cameron Bertuzzi or my channel, I think I'm getting arguments, I'm getting evidence, I'm getting reasons to believe. When I go on their channels, I either get mockery, and I'm not complaining about that. That's fine. Mockery is not necessarily a bad thing so long as you back it up with something. But I get mockery. I get the same, a lot of times, the same cookie cutter bumper sticker responses, though sometimes they're phrased more eloquently than others. I just last week responded to an atheist that I'm going to release the video soon, but it's for our patrons right now. Yeah, Apologia or whatever. Yeah. He's a very bright guy. It's clear that he's thought about these things. But even there, I hear some of the typical responses. For instance, with the Kalam cosmological argument, the first thing we get in his video on that is, well, this argument, we've just read the whole argument, and it doesn't even mention God. It's the whole Matt Dillahunty thing of, this isn't an argument for God, now is it? And I'm thinking, must be a website with all of these things written down, and it's like where we would do our devotions or pray and read the Bible at night, they go through these things. I don't know, but I really think that and I don't mean to talk too much here and want to talk to you, but I really think that one of the reasons that this sort of phenomenon is so convincing, even to some Christians, that it causes them to stagger, is just the unbridled confidence that these people exude when they're doing these things. And on top of that, not only the confidence, but the mockery of, well, you just believe in your sky daddy, and that you believe in Santa Claus and all these kind of things. Yeah, I mean, to a person who doesn't know apologetics to the depth that we know it, that can be really powerful. That can move someone. And if I can play the Christian version of Pine Creek for a moment, you atheists out there that want to make an impact, that's, I think, probably the most powerful thing you do is the mockery, the compare it to mythological creatures every chance you get. But the thing about it is, and the reason that channels like yours are so important is, we need to be actually saying to everyone, hey, yeah, that was great. And rhetoric is good, but rhetoric doesn't change the facts. And I also want to be careful, before I kick it back over to you, to say that there are people out there, there are channels out there from atheists where they do, I think, get away from that and do try to actually, I think, deal with it in a really rigorous way. And so those are the kind of people that I want to, in the future, respond to more. But so it's not everybody, and if the shoe doesn't fit, then don't wear it. But I do think that impacts a lot of people. And from your testimony, we were hearing that it had a rattling impact on you as well.
Well, yeah, the straw man of Sky Daddy, where, the magic genie in the air that grants you your every wish, basically, when they ask you, well, when God prays, I believe it's a question in the 78 questions for answers video, like, does God care about the quality or quantity? And it's just like, clearly the quality, or a mixture of both perhaps. But, it's funny that you mentioned, do they have an index of responses to all the arguments, even though they're straw men? My one friend, Invoking Theism, he's a part of the channel. So everyone should go check out his stuff. He takes forever to make a video, but whenever he does, it's pretty good. Okay. But he was talking to an anti-theist on his campus, and literally the anti-theist was like, yeah, there's a whole index that I get all my information from. And I think he said that he was using it during their conversation. I sort of laughed because, when you brought up that index. But you also mentioned there are other atheist channels out there, skeptical channels that are good. And I'll say Cosmic Skeptic has some interesting stuff.
Sure.
Steve McRae, I like listening to him because he's the most philosophical, consistent non-believer I've come across, because he's an agnostic, and he doesn't go by agnostic atheist.
He's the guy on the non sequitur show, right? He's got the long white hair.
Yeah. Well, did you hear what happened recently?
No.
I probably shouldn't say too much about that, but basically, the non sequitur show isn't really a thing anymore because of certain things that happened.
Wow.
But anyway,
drama.
Yeah, I like drama basically. I like his stuff. I like listening to his philosophical arguments and stuff. And then Cyrus the Skeptic, I'm friends with him. He's helped me with a few tech issues. So yeah, theists and atheists can get along very easily.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the most effective ones are the ones that. Who was the one that genetically modified? Is that the one we talked about?
Yeah, genetically modified skeptic.
Together? Yeah. When I see people who are charming and friendly and they're not angry on YouTube, I think that's more effective than like the Richard Dawkins, spit and vinegar kind of approach.
He does spit vinegar, doesn't he?
Yeah, but I don't. I see a lot of atheists throwing him under the bus. In the academic community for sure, but now he just doesn't seem to be relevant at all anymore. I mean, nobody's talking about Dawkins, or the four. I guess when Hitchens left, all the charm went with him because nobody cares about Dawkins. Few people are talking about Dennett. Only those interested in philosophy of mind, maybe. Nobody's talking about even Sam Harris anymore. You did a video.
I did. I'm talking about him.
Yeah, you're keeping him relevant because no one else cares. I mean, but it seems like that whole thing is in the past, and it's the Dillahunties and the genetically modified. Those seem to be the future of popular atheism.
Yeah. See, you're in a.
Those guys are going to get book deals probably.
I want to ask you in a little while about your interviews that you've done, because when Jonathan and I were your age and into apologetics, the thing about it was you couldn't, YouTube didn't exist, or if it did, it was in its infancy stages. And so as a result, you couldn't just contact your favorite apologist and say, hey, let's jump on and do an interview together. Just wasn't even possible. So you had to go to some conference and stand in line, and maybe you get to shake their hand.
We had McDowell and Geisler and Craig
Habermas,
and
that's pretty much it.
Yeah,
and sometimes Ken Ham on the side.
Yeah, I mean that was but you're in this what's often billed as some golden age of apologetics, and you're talking to your favorite apologist and my favorite and his favorite apologist, more yours than mine, I guess.
Oh, I thought you were saying that both you guys were currently talking with your favorite apologist.
No, he is. He talks to people way more awesome than you.
Hey, he's got David Wood.
Right. I love David Wood.
That took forever to set up.
Well, I imagine he's a busy guy, but
so here's the question. Of all your and maybe this would get you into trouble. So maybe you can just talk about a memorable moment. But I was going to ask you, who of the putting me out of it, obviously. I mean, that would be easy. But who is your favorite interview that you've done? Who did which one? Oh man, that was awesome.
Probably the David Wood one.
Yeah,
because
I would imagine.
Geez, I'm trying. You guys probably know the interviews better than me. I have a horrible memory with past videos. I know I have that list on there. The Braxton Hunter guy, he was okay, but you know.
Thank you.
He was okay.
He's got to keep that Patreon money coming. But hey, he did this cool video with Michael Jones of Inspiring Philosophy.
Oh yeah, I've done like 17 with him.
Yeah, but he did one where he played an
Only
atheist.
one was cool, is what he's saying.
He did one where he played as an atheist. John was an atheist, and he wore a little hat like an atheist. And have you got it with you? Yeah, he's got his atheist hat. And so Michael Jones was on there, and he kept firing off at Michael Jones. It was great. And look, if you're an atheist,
I clearly won that debate. I mean,
oh, it's no question. It's no question.
I love that.
Of all the atheists that have debated Michael Jones, you did the best.
Yeah,
as
the
a Christian
atheist.
Yeah, but here's the thing: if you're an atheist out there and you're bothered at all by what we're saying, calm down. We're just having fun here. Yeah. All right. So,
some of the things they say about us is, I'm surprised I'm calm most of the time.
Yeah, I've been told to kill myself a few times.
Right.
Over the past.
So have I. When you first start out, they're like, when I had under like 20 some subscribers, I'll get attacked by atheists. Like they subscribe and hit the notification bell just so they can instantly dislike your stuff.
Right.
And
leave a comment without watching the video.
Yeah. And eventually I got up there where they just don't care anymore. I eventually get a few, I got a few dislikes on the responding to atheist comments. But surprisingly not too many comments. I think they literally travel in groups and go to a small channel, then work on that for a little while. Then when you don't, I just stop responding to them after a while, and that doesn't help them out, or it doesn't help out. So I'm trying to think of the way to describe it, but basically they move on.
I know what you mean, because just last night I've got probably 6 or so that just always swarm every video, and I'll think that video's kind of run its course and we're on to a new video, and they'll still keep hitting the old video, and I'll go over there and I'll say, what is this a full-time job for you? Like, what are you getting out of this? Yeah, I would say the same thing to a Christian who's doing that too. Right. I'm sure there are. But what's happening? You obviously aren't impressed by me. So find somebody you are impressed by.
Do you let most comments stand, or is there some that you end up deleting on your channel?
I do believe in free speech and so on. And if it's something stupid, I think most people have common sense to realize a stupid comment.
Right.
So I let it stay up just so you can see the horrible arguments. Because I think when you actually get familiar with apologetics, seeing those arguments actually help deal with some of the doubts, because it's just like, oh, this is the other side you're dealing with. But obviously not every atheist argues the same. I'm not saying that.
I've gotten to where if I find an atheist who's sensible and says something like, hey, you know what? I think everything you believe is ridiculous, but really like the way you say all this ridiculous stuff, I'll pin that comment. Those are the ones that I pin. I try to pin the atheist comments that are nice. Yeah. So, but all right. But if you were in a moment of doubt, John, as we all know, there come moments of doubt. Gary Habermas once said that he had a page on his website that was a page called the Hall of Faith. There he would put all the people who had never experienced doubt, and it was a blank page. Because everyone experiences doubt. I think everyone of any worldview experiences doubt. So in those moments of doubt, is there one or more arguments or evidences that you kind of instantly come to mind, and then you're like, oh yeah, obviously, duh. Is there anything like that for you?
Well, as Aaron Rodgers says, I just use the shield of faith to block that defends against all reason, which is the purpose of apologetics, is to just ignore arguments and evidence against
right.
the worldview.
That's right.
So, no, I just it depends on the issue, because if it's something in my own life, or apologetics doesn't necessarily touch on that, and it's just something when I don't get my own way sometimes, and it's just like life doesn't seem to be going, I'll have emotional doubts like that, the emotional pride of evil, you could say. But then I sort of use apologetics to say, oh, well, this is obviously true from what I've studied, or I'm at least convinced of it, and I think it is true. I would argue that's true. So I should probably go where the evidence leads and just deal with that doubt. But when it comes to intellectual doubts, I guess sometimes divine hiddenness can seem like a powerful argument at times, because it's just like, what about people who have never heard? And there's a lot of speculative arguments, but I think there are also good points on our side that deal with some of those points. But you don't deal with every point with that argument. So sometimes I may have doubts with that, perhaps. But
Yeah,
I do have doubts, and
I think that's typical. When my doubts come, and apologists never think about this enough, that it's hardly ever intellectual problems with arguments and evidence and apologetics and the faith that cause your doubts.
Yeah.
It's usually a personal crisis or an existential matter of some kind, or tragedy, loss, whatever. Those are the ones that I think apologetics makes for a good buffer when that happens. But I'm an atheist twice a year, maybe once a year. Become a pagan
For 10 minutes.
for 10, 15 minutes, and it's because it never has to do with anything intellectual.
Yeah.
Right. And that's from our worldview perspective. I mean, that's maybe the intellectual thing happens to people not. I've not heard a lot of apologist deconversion stories.
Yeah.
But I have heard a lot of Christian deconversion stories, and
Yeah.
it's never intellectual. And so I think the enemy, in our worldview, Satan and his cohorts, I think that's one way that they attack us.
Sure.
Is not through the intellectual, but from the emotional or the
Yeah,
the
yeah,
personal.
I think that's my experience as well. The intellectual side of it has never been a big problem for me. It just hasn't.
Yeah.
I was rattled. The people that know my story, I was rattled by a friend who became an atheist, like you said you were, but not in the sense of I'm not sure I believe it, but I just don't know how to respond to what he's saying.
Right.
That was never. It's never intellectual to me, because here's a little bit of chest thumping from our side, since there's a lot of it from the other side. I don't mind doing it. The fact of the matter is, it is not because I'm unaware of the arguments
Right.
they use. It's not because I don't understand. It's not because I'm not open. It's not. But I find the idea that there is no God, in light of, specifically in my case, the design argument, a design argument, or a cosmological argument, various kinds. I find it just absurd, the idea that there's no God.
Well, here's the thing.
I don't know how that gets off.
That's
the ground.
easy for us
I
to
really
say.
don't.
You and I, at our age, and
Are you
we're-
going to be the nice one this
no,
time?
No, I'm just saying we're significantly older than John.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
at our age, it's unlikely that in our lifetimes we are going to hear something new on this, right? We're not going to hear something that we haven't heard before, or that's not related to something that we've heard before put in a different way, that after 10 minutes of thought, we're like, yeah, I'm still a Christian. That's not convincing. But someone like John, not John himself, but someone in his age group,
Where he was when he was
where he
rattled.
was, or
Yeah.
even at his age now in college, just that age group, if there's not people like John around, right, to debunk this kind of thing, then, we talk about people, there are people, not John, that are leaving the Christian faith when they hit college. So what are the practical things, John, that you do, not just to keep yourself in the faith, but to help keep the other believers?
Yeah, how do you keep those Calvinists in the faith at the school that you go to? He goes to a Christian school.
Well, no, he said Calvin. No, but I mean, what are the things that you think churches and you and your own personal ministry need to be doing to keep young people in the flock, so to speak?
well, there definitely has to be. I'm not saying I've developed a way yet, but I think we have to develop a way in which to get people interested in truth in general, to actually make them seek the truth. Because when I used to talk to people in my class, they didn't even care about these things, and that's it's not even skepticism. A lot of the time, it's this post-truth age where you can believe what you believe just as long as it doesn't affect me. Of course, they can go into sort of the Pascal wager way. Well, really, this could affect you if it is true.
Yeah.
So I think we have to make apologetics in a way where it communicates with my age group, because just handing someone a book, they're not going to read it. Or just giving them a lecture, they're not going to. They may listen to it or not, but they won't unless they present it in a way in which they do communicate with it. And I think we need to be more creative in our apologetics approach.
Creative how? Creative.
Yeah, that's a good question. I sometimes just take it for granted and think that if you hand someone a business card or a book, they're just going to read it and almost seek it for themselves. But that's the hardest part for me as an apologist, a young apologist, is getting people interested in it. Because they'll have conversations, and sometimes it just seems like you get nowhere.
Yeah,
And I think the biggest focus should be truth first.
yeah.
Then you should say, well, you should start with a man who claimed to be the truth and see if he works out.
See, I found in churches.
I guess that would be one way I go.
Yeah, in churches, either very few churches, but some churches, few, are gung-ho about apologetics. And then some churches, which I would say are most, either grown or have never thought much about it at all when you talk about apologetics. Some of them groan about it. Some of them are just ignorant of apologetics. And so with all the apologetics that's in social media and all the apologetics that is now littering Amazon and Christian bookstores, whatever ones are left, it's still a niche thing. What is keeping it? Because I've thought about this for 20 years now. What is keeping apologetics out of churches? Where have we failed?
I'll tell you, there's a little bit. There could be a little bit of a generational thing here when it comes to churches, for instance. Just a few weeks ago, as you know, I went to a church in. Hey, David Wood's got a new video. I went to a church in Cookeville, Tennessee, which is a big college town. And this pastor didn't really know much, I don't think. He may have known some apologetics, but he wouldn't have called himself an apologist. So he had me come in, and on a Sunday night, I just gave a talk on the resurrection and then answered questions for about 30 minutes. And his people loved it so much. And I don't think of that as me bragging on myself. That's not what I want people to take from this. But it was just that they had never, most of them had no idea that there were people like that. And so when what happened was that night, the place had lots of young people there, the college people that are in that college town. He then had my dad come just recently for a prophecy thing, because Dad does prophecy type, eschatology type stuff, and that's his thing. That's not so much my thing. And guess what? That was the one that the other generations went to. Yeah. Because it very much was the case in previous decades that sort of thing was the thing that got everybody's blood pumping. Because in the 20th century, this is obviously needs to be caveated, but for the most part, particularly the middle of the 20th century, everybody was culturally Christian. Most people, there were atheists off in godless New York somewhere, or California, but not where I live in Cookeville, Tennessee. And so everybody had these prophecy type conferences, and those people remember that and they still like that. But I don't think they recognize, I don't think most of the boomers and people like that recognize that these younger people love it, and the older people will love it if once they're in it. Because I had as many older people asking me questions as anything else.
Yeah, but what we've seen, it's not just young people leaving the church, it's all age brackets. Young people being the largest segment, but even people in, there's still boomers, there's still Gen Xers walking away from the church too.
Well, and let's remember, they're leaving denominations.
Yeah.
And some of those that are leaving the denominations are going to non-denominational churches. Some are falling into they're identifying as what they always were, which is unbelievers of various sorts. But as we've been seeing in multiple. Did you moderate that debate with the was the distributist or something like that?
I don't think the two I remember on top of my head was the one on slavery between Scholar Fiction Digital, Hammurabi, Praise I Am, and Jesus is Lord. And then one between Inspiring Philosophy and some pagan arguing whether Easter is pagan.
Yeah. That's fun. So, okay, let me ask you this question. What if you were not into apologetics? Let's just say that apologetics was not a thing, and the vast majority of the world was Christian. I mean, like everybody was a Christian. What other Christian discipline do you think that you would be into with this sort of, or something close to this level of passion? I bet I can guess, but you tell me.
Well, this hypothetical, it's almost like if apologetics didn't exist, I don't even think I would be a Christian. But I'll go with
No, you will,
hypothetical.
because in the hypothetical, everybody's a Christian.
Yeah. What other
Yeah.
what other Christian discipline or even secular or what other academic pursuit?
No. I want it Christian.
Oh, you
what
want it
Christian
Christian.
discipline?
Pastoral ministry, theology.
Soteriology, eschatology.
Well, that's theology.
Yes.
Fine.
Yeah, are you more towards specific theology like eschatology and stuff, or?
I don't know, just
'Cause I'm
whatever
thinking,
comes to your mind.
Soteriology.
So that's what I pegged. That's what I thought.
soteriology?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
he's a Molinist. If you're a Molinist, you've thought about those things to a great depth.
Well,
and plus, his
doctrine of
context,
God,
he's in a
doctrine-
context where
Theology
that's
proper.
soteriology is a big issue. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So soteriology would be your number 2 pick to apologetics.
Yeah.
Well, here's
Well,
Me
I think
too.
it does tie it to apologetics without Molinism and stuff. So.
yeah, apologetics, soteriology, and evangelism seem to mix well. They pair well. So, any favorite voices on that issue, or are you fearful to discuss it?
James White has clearly debunked Molinism, so I guess I should stop being a Molinist.
That's right. That's right.
yeah.
Don't you love this
Who's
kid?
God's card dealer? Who dealt God the cards?
Yeah.
Yeah, but literally on their view, God is fated to deal one card every time,
Right.
because most of them would hold to like absolute divine simplicity, and James White does do this. And literally, God's knowledge can't have any distinctions, so he's fated to always create the same world. If you replay it or you do the Matt Dillahunty time travel, it's going to be the same way every time for God. So God has dealt his one card.
Yeah. Well, and not all Calvinists. See, I'm are you a member of our Trinity Radio Primetime group on Facebook?
I don't think I am.
Oh, well,
should-
in there, I always, people know that I'm not a Calvinist, but I not as much of a hobby horse issue as it used to be for me, but I always list like my favorite Reformed authors, the ones that I recommend read, because it isn't a monolithic tradition. There are nuances among Calvinist scholars, and so of course most of my list is pretty much Reformed and Presbyterian. The Reformed Baptist crowd, very shallow pool. They don't have a deep bench like the Westminster tradition does. So those would be my recommendations. I do like engaging with Reformed theology as well, not just Reformed soteriology. So even the Reformed tradition is broader than that, and I think the Reformed Baptists, like James White, focus so much on soteriology that they forget the wider tradition of Reformed theology proper, which I would argue that conservative Arminian, Wesley, Methodists are more Reformed because they baptize babies than Reformed Baptists are, who don't, but that's a different fight than. But so Reformed theology is interesting to me. It's just not something I buy into.
See, Dr. Pritchett is in New Testament studies and biblical studies and stuff. So whenever we tripped over into that subject, that's where he gets excited, like we do about apologetics. But I
get excited about evangelistic apologetics.
Amen.
I don't get excited about accomplish nothing apologetics. Navel gazing apologetics is and that's one thing that I worry about this next generation being navel gazers instead of active and evangelistic about
That's
it.
right. Don't look at navels, especially if you're not married to the person that has that navel. So let me ask you this: where do you want to be in the end? If God shows up and He says, "I'm going to use you greatly in Christian apologetics," whatever for Christianity, what are you going to do? What would you say? Okay, well then here's what I want. I want to. If you'll let me choose, I want this, that, and the other thing. That's what I would. That's just like my pipe dream.
World domination, obviously. No, I'm kidding.
They call
I
that the
think more.
Antichrist.
Yeah, you're the Antichrist.
You want to be the Antichrist?
No, kidding. Where am I? No, I am kidding.
I like this.
But I think God has me heading towards towards the William Lane Craig area. I guess more of a theologian, philosopher, and worldwide apologist, maybe.
That's
But
what
we'll
you
see what
want to do.
happens.
So it's full-time apologetics. Do you want to be professor of apologetics, or do you want to have a robust apologetics ministry and maybe adjunct if needed? But You really want to be? Do you want to be? You're not. Are you debating now? Or are you going to start doing debates or?
The only I don't want to say major debate, but I did debate an open theist in like January.
Is that online somewhere?
Yeah, it's on Modern Day Debate.
Okay.
I basically argued for Molinism. Maybe debating a Unitarian on the Trinity. So I've been preparing for that possibly.
Oh yeah, Chris Day.
Yeah.
He had a recent debate with Dale Tuggy. You might want to check that out. It was a really interesting debate on that topic. So a lot of good stuff there.
Well,
but that's good.
yeah.
It's not. You're not. See, this is what I like too. He's not just focusing on atheists, which I have long argued for apologists to not just focus on the atheist. So you're my new favorite, man. You're doing it right.
Yeah, debate broadly, right?
Right, debate other things.
Yeah.
Besides,
I've
God exist?
debated two things.
I know, but he's talking about defending traditional Orthodox Trinitarian theology.
Yeah.
And what was the other one? Open theism.
Yeah.
Way to go. I'm proud, man. That's awesome.
Well, listen, John, we're gonna wrap this up soon. Is there anything that you would
want to plug?
Yeah, about your channel or just anything you want to sermonize about or confront Pritchett with about any sins he might have? Whatever you want to do. This is your time.
Yeah, I have a whole list prepared for Dr. Pritchett.
Thank you.
No, I'm kidding.
Jonathan is Jonathan.
Well, yeah, I guess, the whole purpose of my website ministry basically is Christian truth being spread through apologetics, and I basically argue that the new form of evangelism, or a new popular form of evangelism, should be apologetics, because I do believe apologetics is a form of evangelism. So I do purport to that, which all that is on my website, ChristianTruthOrApologetics.com. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, then please do.
Yeah.
And I also have a Patreon if people want to support me on that as well, like Trinity Radio does.
Yeah, that's an important thing. Like, obviously, it'd be great if people would become your patrons, and we hope they will do that, and then we hope they'll become our patrons too. But here's the thing: I don't think there's a lot of consumers out there that just listen to our content. Your content, our content, and they're not YouTubers, and so they might not appreciate the effect that clicking that subscribe button has. I mean, I don't mean to sound like a commercial or something, but for instance, there are features that your channel and my channel just this year are able to now take advantage of because we have a certain number of subscribers, and so that's really helpful. It doesn't cost you anything, so even if you never plan on watching John Dunfee again, go subscribe to his channel.
Yeah, and
it'll help
ours,
the kid out,
and become his patron and ours.
Yeah, and if you're one of John Dunphy's people, come subscribe to our channel. But listen, the thing I wanted to highlight about this, and the reason that I wanted to have John on, other than that he's become a friend, I think I was down in Atlanta, Georgia the other day, doing some seminary work, and talked to John for like an hour on the phone just about this, that, and the other. And we become friends, I think, and so that's a cool thing. But I wanted to have him on to highlight that this idea that young people are not interested in apologetics and not impressed with the evidence and that we have on our side of things,
leaving
all
the
that.
faith in droves.
Yeah. I mean, and of course, this is an easy tee up for some skeptic in the comments to say, well, yeah, you went and found the one, right? No, he's not the only one. There are a lot out there. It's just that John has actually made the moves to develop now an influential channel, a potent channel. And
by the way, those atheists, because of people like John, switch teams and come our way too. So let's not ignore those atheist deconversion stories.
Well, I think all the young folks my age who are atheists or are non-believers are because they haven't looked at the evidence. So whenever they brag about this, just like, they haven't done much research.
Yeah, so maybe what we need to do is just go on the channel when there's a young atheist guy on debating, and we say, well, he's obviously got a high IQ, he's pretty smart, he'll be a Christian before
That's
long.
right.
Yeah.
Just leave those comments everywhere.
Yeah. All right. Well, John, listen, we've really enjoyed having you here, and we're excited about what God's going to do with your ministry going forward. And we do encourage everyone to follow you and subscribe and do all those things that you do on social media. And we'll get you in the Trinity Radio primetime discussion forum, and then you can push your stuff in there.
I think while we
too.
were talking, he requested to join.
Good.
So he's in there. And here's what I tell everybody before you go. Here's what I tell everybody. I'm terrible at this YouTube stuff, podcasting stuff. If you post it, and you are free to post your content in our group, if you don't post it, I'll never watch it. So you have to post it in our group, and I'll watch it.
If you care if he watches it.
Yeah, if you want me to watch, well, no, I think a lot of people are like, because I've gotten on.
I think a lot of people care if I watch it.
I've gotten on to several pastors who say, I listen to your sermons if you post it.
Yeah.
Bro down. Post your stuff in our forum, because if you don't, I'll forget.
Yeah.
So please spam our forum with your content.
And it's clear that you're not familiar with all the social media stuff, because it's not a forum, it's a group.
You know what I mean.
All right, John, we've had a blast with you.
Yeah, spam our group.
Hey,
keep us
and
updated.
for all the rest of you, check out our sister podcasts, The Bible Brodown with Billy Wendell and Matt Chisholm, Soteriology 101 with Leighton Flowers, and Steve Gregg's The Narrow Path. And do check us out on patreon.com/Trinity Radio. If you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, check that out. And we'll see you next time on Trinity
Thank you,
Radio.
John.
Trinity.
No problem.
Trinity Radio.